patreon.com/thephp. That's patreon.com/thephp. Get extra content today, partner with us, and help build the Liberty Machine. We're asking you to partner with us for as little as $5 a month. Now, you can go up from there. You can go to $10 a month and get extra features, or $25 a month and become a Conduit Media Insider. But for $5 a month, you can really help us out. You can get extra content. You can see what we talk about on sets like this. And I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Back in a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Program, you obviously can tell that we have a State Representative Dan Sullivan is with us in studio. Dan, welcome back, sir.
Hey, Paul. Always good to be here. Thank you.
We also have a special treat as well from the Alliance Defending Freedom. The senior counsel, Mr. Tyson Langhofer, is on the phone. Tyson, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
Absolutely, and I know you're in the middle of traveling. I appreciate you able to take the time out of your day to talk to us about this. The case that we're referring to is, right here in Arkansas. Arkansas State University has been sued by Turning Point USA. This from the Associated Press, and it says attorneys with Alliance Defending Freedom filed the federal lawsuit Wednesday on behalf of student Ashlyn Hoggard and conservative group Turning Point USA. The Jonesboro Sun reported Hoggard set up a table at the university in October, hoping to generate interest in forming a campus chapter of Turning Point USA, but an administrator told her to stop. So, Tyson, what can you tell us as senior counsel for the Alliance Defending Freedom? What can you tell us about this particular incident?
Sure. Well, we represent Ashlyn. Ashlyn's a student that really is passionate about our First Amendment freedoms. She's passionate about limited government, and she wanted to bring a new voice, a new group to Arkansas State University. So she, applied to form Turning Point USA. In order to do that, you have to have at least 5 members. And so she thought, well, I'm going to go set up a table out in the front of the student union where there's a lot of foot traffic. And she set it up along the side of a large walkway, open walkway on the side where she wasn't blocking any sort of traffic. And she just had a sign that and a bowl of candy. And within several minutes, an administrator and a police officer came over and told her that she had to move because for 2 reasons. One, she was not in the speech zone, and apparently Arkansas State has a policy which limits students to speaking to other students into speech zones. And not only do they limit them that way, but they also require prior permission before doing so. And so they ordered Ashlyn to leave, and she did leave. And Ashlyn contacted us, and we filed a lawsuit challenging these policies because they're unconstitutional.
So what exactly, because I know the university, they said, look, our policy is consistent with the First Amendment. So, I mean, when I cover this, it's like, okay, well, somebody says, no, we're following the First Amendment. Somebody else says, no, you're not. So where's the rub? Obviously.
Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the First Amendment is very clear that what this is a prior restraint. The public university is a public forum for its students, and it has large open walkways, it has park-like areas, and the university is a public institution, and it can't shut down areas and require students to get prior permission before engaging in speech in these public forums. And that's very clear. I'm not aware of a case in the country which has upheld a policy which limits students to small speech zones on its campus. And we've litigated these for more than 10 years. We have more than a 90% success rate. And I've looked at this. This policy is similar to ones that we've struck down in many, many other states and many other jurisdictions. And, so college students don't need a permit to speak to other students on campus. The only permit they need is the First Amendment.
I mean, I completely agree with that. And, I would wonder kind of how this came about. You mentioned other universities. Are there any other universities in Arkansas that you know of that have this similar policy where they're basically, advancing this concept of freedom of speech zones?
Yeah, I believe University of Arkansas has one as well. And, you can look. There's some websites that track this, and I've looked at University of Arkansas. I believe they have one as well. The policies are fairly prevalent. They are becoming less so because they're being attacked and struck down so often, but they go across the country, and it's this mindset by universities, by government officials of this nanny state that they somehow have to monitor every action that's taken by these students are adults, and they don't need to be monitored in every action that they take on the university campus. There's all kinds of policies that the university can use if there is a problem. They have policies that say you can't.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program today. My name is Paul. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine here. We need your help to do that. The phone number to call, text is 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. All right, let me start here because this is pretty. This just was sent to me like right before the program started today. It's pretty frustrating. From KIT8.com headline: Arkansas House Chamber to get $1.25 million update. The Marble Palace, one of the chambers down at the Marble Palace, going to get some renovations. Now, there is no word as to whether or not Senator Jake Files will put in a bid or falsify one for this job. You never know. Maybe he will put in a bid. The Arkansas Democrat Gazette reports that the House Management Committee authorized the Little Rock architect on Tuesday to seek bids. Oh, well, hey, calling Senator Jake Files. So, a little bit of the optics here about this is that, Joe, how much money do you think it costs to record every vote by putting electronic devices in the committee rooms? There's not a ton of committee rooms down there. I mean, how much do you think that would cost? I mean, I don't know specifically, but I feel like $1.25 million would certainly go a long way into accomplishing that. I mean, because we're just talking about pretty simple, electronic, record buttons and stuff like that. And keep in mind that the Senate still doesn't. They're going to spend $1.25 million replacing the desks in the House chamber and the carpet. They don't like the carpet anymore. They say it's just too old. It's decades old. How many business owners are working in offices that haven't changed in decades? How many Arkansas business owners are working in conditions, are working in a building that hasn't been renovated at all in 20, 25 years? And you're happy to do it because this is where you work, and right? But we have to have that House chamber looking. And by the way, it's beautiful. The House chamber it's beautiful as is. But we got to get rid of the desks. We got to get rid of the carpet. What color is the carpet going to be? Purple? You could probably convince them of that. Some would say, yeah, I want it to be purple because of, we want to be a bipartisan state. And the others would say, no, I think it should be purple because of royalty. And, I'm sorry, yeah, my pessimism is immense. But I just want to, let's think about this. They don't have cameras in the Mac building. The Mac building is the building right off the grounds of the Marble Palace where legislators retreat to when they don't want to be on camera. You see, because the committee rooms, the House has cameras, the House has microphones at every desk. Okay, the House has committee rooms, cameras and microphones and things like that. They don't record their votes, but they do have, that level of transparency. The Senate, on the other hand, does not. The Senate has no cameras. They don't have microphones that work a lot of times at every desk. People don't. They stream an audio stream only. The Senate does, and the only microphone that is live is the one at the well. So if there's somebody that asks a question from the floor, you can't hear it because they're not mic'd properly. It's extremely frustrating. My point is $1.25 million. Well, we got to get rid of the desks and the carpet, but what about the transparency? What about putting cameras in the Senate? What about micing the Senate? What about putting cameras in Senate committee rooms? And people are going to, well, this is the House and the Senate, Paul, are two different. Yeah, I know that, but this is all taxpayer money we're talking about here. This is all we're talking about managing our government, and I just think these resources shouldn't be spent to replace their, desks that look fine to me. The chairs look great. The chairs look pretty comfortable the way they like to, lean back in them. And again, why not use it for the Mac building? Put cameras in the Mac building. Why not? These guys want to go on record. This is the truth, the least amount of times possible. And that's what's so pathetic about this. They go down there and they want to go on record the least amount of times possible, and they don't record their votes, and they don't want evidence. I mean, how valuable is it? How valuable is it that we have that James Sturch video? You know why the Senate is so slow to follow suit and put cameras and mic the Senate chamber properly the way the House has? It's because of videos like James Sturch, where he's walking out doing a legislative maneuver, legislative sleight of hand, to kill a bill he just voted for after he looked at his phone and got a text message. Now, there are senators in the other chamber there that say, oh, wow, yeah, I don't want people being able to go back and watch what I was doing on the floor. And it's just not right. But anyway, that's the news. First up, just came to me, just kind of outrageous, $1.25 million for new carpet in the chamber and the decades-old desks and chairs. Oh, gosh. I mean, it's like we need sad violin music or something. I mean, they're so impoverished down there. What about restoring the desks? I mean, that whole building that went under a massive restoration that had to be done just for maintenance purposes. The vaults, the vaulted ceilings and everything like that in the chambers, and then as well as outside, the Capitol. It was in disrepair before Secretary of State Mark Martin got there, and a lot of stuff had to be done. That's maintenance. But as long as those chairs are still, you're able to sit in them, and the desks are still. I mean, I don't see what the problem is. They need new carpet. They need new carpet, I guess. Telephone number 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. All right, moving on. This is what I actually had planned to do at the beginning of the hour. Yesterday, we told you about secret audio recordings that were deleted by an FBI agent after he, I guess, allegedly, accidentally deleted, or no. He purposely took a computer home that's not authorized for home use, and then they had audio recordings on them, and the audio recordings were deleted because they wanted the computer back, and so the FBI agent, according to this, deleted the audio recordings because he also let his children download music, and some of his children's health records were on there, so he just wiped the entire laptop before he let the FBI's recovery division take a look at it or something like that. Now, the audio recordings are safe. They were stored somewhere else. But this whole thing has been used as a way to potentially accuse the FBI and the government of bad faith because they weren't aware of the secret recordings. And then, of course, they were deleted. So this all happened yesterday. And one of the things that I said was, is this going to end up making possibly, is John Woods going to walk now? Senator John Woods in his corruption trial. Well, you got to remember, it's not just John Woods who's on trial here. His conspirators, alleged, accomplices here are Ecclesia College, the president there, Orrin Paris III. Okay? So you get this article. Check this article out. This is headline, Judge, Defense Violated Gag Rule in Public Corruption Case Involving Arkansas Legislators. We have been covering extensively the fact that for some reason the John Woods corruption trial, many of the things that would commonly be open for the public to read, like pleadings and things like that, have been sealed just over and over and over again. And there's a lot of secrecy surrounding the prosecution of Senator John Woods and Orrin Paris III, and Randall Shelton Jr., okay? So now we find out, though, this whole story that I covered yesterday was brought to the media's attention by a document that an attorney filed, but it was under seal. He wasn't supposed to file it, and now the judge is ordering him to appear where he may be disbarred for violating the court's order. It's pretty serious stuff. A letter detailing the wiping of computer records in a public corruption case involving state legislators should never have been posted on a public website of court records, a federal judge declared in an order Tuesday. Again, this is Doug Thompson of the Gazette reporting this. He writes that a January 25th hearing has been set to consider disciplinary action against Gregory Payne of the Story Law Firm in Fayetteville, the defense attorney named in the order. Now, keep in mind, the Story Law Firm, okay, that's the firm that State Representative Bob Ballinger works at. It's also the firm that represents Ecclesia in this FOIA lawsuit where Ecclesia is trying and fighting, having to turn over documents about where their General Improvement Fund grant money, taxpayer money, how it was spent. And that's been tied up in a whole court case, a different court case, because, Ecclesia says we're a religious institution and we're not subject to FOIA. The lawsuit Joey McCutcheon's a part of, attorney in Fort Smith, is saying, no, you take public money. And if you take public money, well, so then Ecclesia comes back and says, well, we're a church. Well, if Ecclesia is a church, that violates the Arkansas Constitution because you can't give taxpayer money to a church. So it's a very strange bedfellows how this is all weaving together. And I would refer you back to Conduit for Action's article on the FOIA changes that were defeated, thank goodness, but they tried to change the FOIA law, okay? And State Representative Bob Ballinger was working on that and was writing amendments and stuff to it, and it was just very weird occurrence that State Representative Bob Ballinger's law firm was representing Ecclesia College that was involved in an FOIA dispute. So it was very, at the very bare minimum, it just didn't look good. The letter, now keep in mind, okay, so back to this letter that was posted, that should have been posted. Doug Thompson, the letter was posted late Monday along with the defense motion to dismiss the case against Orrin Paris III, one of the three defendants in the federal kickback case. So this Gregory Payne, the attorney that published this letter about the missing FBI deleted audio recordings that the FBI agent did, okay, That's Orrin Paris's attorney that's doing this, Gregory Payne. He's the one that's doing this. He's the one now that they're talking about that has violated the court's order. One of three defense federal kickback pays. Okay, here we go. Let me skip down here. Another 79 record. Okay, so former state representative Micah Neal, who pled guilty to taking $43,000 or $38,000 in kickbacks. Neal covertly, recorded telephone conversations, some of which are set to be used in the government's corruption trial against John Woods, prosecuting him. Another 79 recordings were discovered after Shelton's defense counsel discovered gaps in the narrative. So that's Randall Shelton. That's the other guy, the lobbyist, consultant, if you will. The government learned that the laptop used in the investigation had its memory wiped after unauthorized personal use by an FBI agent. Those details were in a 3-page letter attached to the defense motion that was posted late Monday and removed from the court's website early Tuesday, but not before the Northwest Arkansas Democrat Gazette reported the contents. So why does the attorney, why does Orrin Paris's attorney here post this document against the court's orders, and he does it say early in the morning? Website early Tuesday. How does that happen? Why does he do it? And the only thing I can think of is this attorney is trying to gin up public support to say that the government's acted in bad faith to try to affect the public's perception of all of this. It's pretty interesting. So the judge involved in this case, the judge presiding is Timothy Brooks, U.S. District Judge Timothy L. Brooks. He has now ordered this attorney, Payne, to appear January 25th, quote, to show cause why this court should not find that he willfully violated the court's protective order and should not take disciplinary action against him, to include monetary sanctions, disbarment from the bar of this court, and reporting any sanctions imposed on him in this matter to any other courts of whose bar he may be a member. A request for comment by phone from Payne or the law firm was not returned, according to the Gazette. All matters of discovery in this case are under court-ordered seal, something the letter in question states. Quote, the opening sentences of the very letter at issue stated, this is from Timothy Brooks again, the judge, stated in unmistakable language that the following disclosures are considered discovery materials. Doug Thompson of the Gazette goes on and reports that Payne and other defense counsel in previous motions have protested the secrecy surrounding the case. So there's a process here, and Mr. Payne should probably be disbarred. I think it's a pretty clear-cut case, and I'm no attorney, but if you've got a problem with the way you can file a complaint against the judge if you've got a problem with the way the judge is handling things. If you think the judge is being too secret, then you can file a complaint against that judge. But there's a process for it all. And look, I'm in the media. You think I want all this stuff to be secret? I want to know it all. I wish I knew everything. But see, now you have the possibility that we're not getting the whole picture. We're not getting the whole picture in terms of, okay, well, he's selectively dropping what he wants in the public view. Well, what about the government's case? What about all of that should be in the public view? We got to take a break. I've gone way over. You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program. Back in a moment.
Merry Christmas from the Paul Harrell Program and Conduit Media.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Who's next to Zipline?
Me, and I'm really excited about this.
Sir, I'm sorry. The Zipline has a 350-pound weight limit, and frankly, I do not think it would be safe for you.
Oh, that's okay. I self-identify as 180 pounds, so it's cool.
Sir, that doesn't make any sense to me, and I'm afraid we can't let you ride the Zipline. You're too heavy. I'm sorry.
I can't believe this. I thought we had evolved as a society. I thought this was America, but I guess this is just my plight. First slavery, and now fat shaming.
Sir, again, I'm really sorry.
You listen to me. If you don't let me ride, not only will I sue this company for discrimination, I will sue you for damages because right now my feelings are so hurt and I feel embarrassed because I'm holding up the line.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Watch it, mister.
Look, okay, I'm sorry. I just don't think it would be safe for you.
You don't understand. I self-identify as skinny. So you have to let me ride the zip line. The Constitution says so. I get to define my own reality.
Okay, fine, whatever. Ride the zip line. Mike, let this man ride the zip line.
Thank you. Now watch as my self-identity trumps your bigotry. See you on the other side, racist. Here I go! Doctor, thank goodness. What's the prognosis?
Sir, we've done everything we can, and you only have seconds to live.
No, you cannot say that. I do not self-identify as a dead person.
PHP Parody.
All right, so as of now, welcome back to the program. Merry Christmas to everybody out there listening. So one more update on this particular story about you have the attorney here in the corruption case, Ecclesia's representing Orrin Paris, Mr. Payne, not obeying the court and basically leaking a sealed document, and now he has to appear before the judge. Listen to this, quote, Mr. Payne may disagree with this court's ruling on that motion, but the court's ruling was clear and he had notice of it. Disagreement with the court order is not a license for an officer of the court to disobey it. So how did this all happen? Again, Judge Timothy Brooks, quote, finally, the timing of Mr. Payne's actions is especially troubling to the court. He caused these materials to be filed publicly at 6:04 p.m. on December 18th, more than an hour after the court had closed for the day. By 4:30 a.m. the following morning, several hours before the court would be open again for business, a lengthy article had already been published in a prominent Arkansas newspaper containing extensive discussion of these materials, mainly that the FBI agent took a laptop home with recordings on it and they got deleted. The circumstances make it appear, Doug Thompson writes, that the timing was deliberately intended to make sure the court could not either stop the posting nor remedy the situation. So he waits until 6 o'clock, after 6 o'clock till the court's closed. He drops the document, maybe dials a journalist and says, hey, you need to look right now. And 4:30 a.m., there's already a story written about it, and the court can't enforce its wishes that the document remain sealed.
So you've cut back on everything from lattes to lunches. Welcome those of you watching at paulharrell.com, Facebook Live, or our YouTube page, The Paul Harrell Program. This is the set where we shoot our Wednesday weekly videos for our Patreon subscribers. And if you want to get on board and get extra Paul Harrell program content because you want to partner with us, you believe the show has value, you want to help us keep the show on the air, you want to help us grow the show, you want to help us make videos like this one even better, then you need to seriously think about subscribing to Patreon. It's patreon.com/thephp. That's patreon.com/thephp. Get extra content today, partner with us, and help build the Liberty Machine. We're asking you to partner with us for as little as $5 a month. Now, you can go up from there. You can go to $10 a month and get extra features, or $25 a month and become a Conduit Media Insider. But for $5 a month, you can really help us out. You can get extra content. You can see what we talk about on sets like this, and I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Back in a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Block doorways. You can't block the sidewalks. You can't harass other people. So if they're doing those things, they can shut down that activity. But they can't require every student to obtain prior permission before speaking with other students. That's unconstitutional, and frankly, it's unnecessary, and it really undermines the purpose of a university, which is to allow these students to engage in the marketplace of ideas.
Hey, Tyson, it's Dan. How you doing?
Hey, Dan. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, we've spoken a few times. I talked with the university officials very short. As soon as it was filed, they called and want to arrange a meeting, and I fully expect them, anticipate they'll work with us to correct this. What would you consider is the correction? What do they need to do to correct their policy so they're consistent with our First Amendment?
Sure, absolutely. And frankly, that's our goal. Our goal is not to punish. Our goal is just to get a good policy. And a good policy is one that basically in the open outdoor areas of campus, we're not talking about buildings that are set aside for academic use, and we're not talking about athletic facilities. Those are set aside for certain purposes. But in the open outdoor areas of campus, students should be free to speak to other students. They shouldn't have to get a permit, and they can impose reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions, such as they could say you can't stand outside the dorms at 3 in the morning with a bullhorn. Clearly, that's not necessary, and that's a reasonable restriction. But in the open outdoor areas of campus, sidewalks, parks, grass, things like that, the students can engage with other students without a prior permit. And so as long as they can, basically take away these speech zones, take away the prior restraints, and allow students to engage subject to certain reasonable restrictions without, not blocking or harassing, things like that, then that's a policy that is constitutional and, frankly, accomplishes the goals of the university, which is to make a campus which is amenable to students being able to learn and educate themselves.
Tyson, I've met with our college Republicans several times. I'm just really proud of them stepping up. I know they were a little anxious when this first happened, a little scared, intimidated, in fact. And I know you came to the campus, didn't you, and met with the college Republicans?
I came and met with Ashland, correct. I looked around the campus and I saw it, and it's very consistent with all the other universities that I've met with, and there's no, and seen, and there's no reason that these permits are needed. There's no reason these restrictions are needed. The students can accomplish what they want, and the university can accomplish what they want without having these draconian restrictions imposed. And one of the real problems with these is that almost always the university has authority to grant the permit without any kind of restriction, and that's called unbridled discretion. It's unconstitutional.
All right, welcome back. Merry Christmas to you. Also, I want to welcome back to the program. We've got Senator Brian King with us from Arkansas's 5th Senate District. Senator King, welcome, sir. Thanks so much.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and I want to thank the great patriots of Act 746 for sponsoring this particular segment. They're on a mission to educate people about constitutional carry and your rights and gun rights, and right here in Arkansas about Act 746 and how it gives us constitutional carry. And so, Brian, one of the reasons we're going to talk Arkansas political corruption here in just a minute, generally.
You mean that's been going on? Roby Brock doesn't. I mean, now he's saying something about it, but
yeah, it's ridiculous. I want to talk about that in a minute, but I specifically on enhanced carry, this bill that's going to get, it's putting more barriers between us and our Second Amendment rights is what it was, and yet
That's right.
it got heralded as something awesome. But you were at the Arkansas Legislative Council. The concealed handgun carry instructors and Second Amendment activists are not happy with this bill at all. So what can you tell us went down last Friday?
Yeah, and Paul, let me back up the original debate. And I've run gun legislation before, and I've learned through mistakes and just learn from experience. And what you have to do with gun legislation, you have to go meticulously, you have to go methodically, you have to take your time, think about the situation, everything like that. That didn't happen with Asa Hutchinson. Okay, that didn't happen with Jim Hendren. And during the debate, we originally supported a bill out of the committee, and then it went to the Senate floor. Then Jeremy Hutchinson went to monkeying with it, and then there went to being a bunch of games. And then once the circus started, it's like they felt like they had to come up with something. Well, I asked Jim Hendren in a private conversation. I said, Jim, and I knew that there was going to be the train was rolling down the tracks. We knew he was going to have to do something. I said, just take your time. Let's work on it together. Maybe there's some things we can work on. Maybe I might support it in the end. I don't know. And I said, just don't pull the bill out of committee and not have a debate. Well, that's exactly what they did. And they didn't allow the committee members that are the most Second Amendment supporters in the state, Linda Collins-Smith, Gary Stubblefield, Terry Rice, and myself, to even have any debate on it. Asa Hutchinson didn't want that. Jim Hendren didn't want that. They wanted their way, and you could just see this was going to happen. So now fast forward to now that they did what's so crazy about this, and almost you want to use some other blue-collar words, is that they rushed the legislation so much, and here we are January 1st, and none of this has taken place yet. Mm-hmm. So they sit there and go, and they put it out, and the state police has to do this. Well, a lot of my instructors up here are going some of them are going Brian, I'm not going to require this training. Here we talk about occupational licensing and regulation and all this. They put a regulation on them, an unreasonable regulation that inexcusable to put in there in the first place, to require them to do the training if they want to. Some of them just don't want to do it. I mean, they don't have the time. They don't have the amount of people that will go through it to do it. So they force that on them. Mm-hmm. The second part, which may be even the craziest thing, is this nominal fee part. And, Paul, I put up on Twitter the definition of nominal. Let me see if I can pull it up here.
Yeah, we're getting it right now and putting it up on our screen for our listeners.
It's just charged less than what it actually costs to do it. And this is from Republicans. Mm-hmm. I mean, so they put this stuff in there about nominal fees. So if you charge what it actually costs you to do it, you're a lawbreaker, according to Jim Hendren. And the bad part about this is not only did they slap the faces of the concealed weapon instructors, they also did the state police. Okay, the state police needs to be worrying about crime that obviously Jim Hendren wants to, Asa Hutchinson want to fund more Medicaid and not prisons to keep her area safe, state safe. But so they sit there and do that because they had to put up with all the complaints. I told my CCL instructors, I said, don't complain to the state police. It was a bunch of politicians doing stupid things. So we go to Friday, and me and Josh Miller questioned Duncan Baird on the budget, which is terrible. You have a prison director that is saying having trouble making financial commitments, and the newspaper said this. But yet we had to spend 2 hours dealing with this issue. Mm-hmm. Because of incompetence, trying to run legislation. And so it was just, the debacle continues. And then they dump the debacle on the poor state police. And then we've had to go through stuff all because they sit there and didn't think the legislation through.
Well, it seemed to me they were trying to protect. Asa did not want a professor on a college campus to be able to carry a gun if they already had a permission slip in the form of a concealed carry. He didn't want even that. And so instead of just letting it play out, Charlie Collins just should have run his bill, made Asa veto it and own it. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to protect him.
Well, and he got Jeremy Hutchinson, his nephew. Yep. Jeremy Hutchinson is the worst person that could be judiciary chairman. Look at his past record on running bills that are terrible. Like I said, we have a crime crisis going on, and he's been the leading guy that they've turned to down there, and it's a complete failure. Our judiciary committee that he has ran for the last 3 times is pathetic. And so he started, I guess, on the orders of Asa. I don't know. Maybe he did it on his own. Started, playing a bunch of monkey games with this thing. And, what started out is something that okay, and maybe I was going to support and go through, like I said, turned into a complete embarrassment for the state.
Yeah, it really did. The policy was not a good policy because they were only trying to cover Asa politically, and that's
right.
why everything doesn't make sense. And you have concealed carry instructors who are now thinking of just quitting altogether because the regulations are so onerous.
Mm-hmm.
And, then, and this is again, you had Jeremy Hutchinson, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, saying things like, well, I don't think I wouldn't want my son, to have be able to have a weapon on a college campus. Then that whole thing started as well.
There's
an
easy answer to that, Senator Hutchinson. That's why he's so incompetent. Don't let your son carry it.
Yeah.
I mean, if he,
that's right. Yeah.
If he handles guns like he handles judiciary legislation, then no, don't let him take, we really shouldn't be, if anybody's incompetent, we shouldn't be letting Jeremy Hutchinson handle judiciary legislation or run the committee.
So on Friday, I understand, is it true it was reported that Senator Gary Stubblefield made a motion to basically dismiss this whole thing or table it because it was unconstitutional, and that didn't go over too well?
Yeah, I mean, we had substitute motion of a substitute motion, and Joyce Elliott, who's obviously a different, wants to stop the whole thing. Gary wants to stop it on constitutional gun rights, and Joyce Elliott wants to just stop it altogether. And so you had two substitute motions, and you had a substitute motion and a substitute motion of the original. It just really was a total embarrassment in front of the people down there and the people of Arkansas. I mean, I'd sit there and say on Channel 11, Three Stooges could have ran a better bill than what these guys did.
Mm-hmm. And again, it's just because they were taking political considerations and not actually looking at what the policy is going to be.
Yeah, they just wanted to pass something and something they could go beat their chest over.
Yeah, exactly.
And in reality, and I think there were a lot of good people and a lot of good legislators that got put in the bad legislation from the core people that ran it. And I think that's what happens, and then they get in and they vote for it. But really what needs to happen, and I've said it on Twitter and everything else, and it won't happen because these guys can't admit that what they did was a total embarrassment and wrong, what they did and how they did it. But what really needs to happen is you need to have another bill and go methodically through things and actually expand gun rights without requiring more regulations in most of these places. Maybe tackle a few of these other things that we might not like or whatever, but make it where it just totally needs to be dismantled and done all over again. It doesn't need to be massaged, like Bob Ballinger said, which that kind of creeps me out. Anytime you're talking about massaging a bill, well, that's weird. But anyway, it just, like I said, the whole thing was an embarrassment. It was not done professionally. It was not done. It was just trying to pass something complicated. Let's worry about the rules later, and let's go beat our chest over what we did.
All right, so moving on, we're talking with Senator Brian King, giving us that enhanced carry update, and just what a complete mess it is. I mean, it's the definition of spreading your tentacles and getting bad results elsewhere you didn't anticipate, and that is government in a nutshell. So I want to pivot now to the headline from today. Speaking of getting bad results elsewhere, state Medicaid rolls cut by 2,900. Now, that's the main headline. The sub-headline by Andy Davis is, for the year, 73,000 enrollees were found ineligible or removed. I don't know why that headline is not on the top, because that is the one that reports what a terrible job the government's doing. And then, Brian, yet in this article, they find a way, Asa Hutchinson and the rest of them, to spin this like they're actually doing a good job. And it's just maddening, because this is the result of everything we've predicted of how big government program doesn't deliver.
Yeah. And let me tell you something else. Asa Hutchinson is once again misleading, deceiving people. If he has a problem with me saying that, then let's come with the facts. He knew about this problem 2.5 years ago. His people knew about the problem 2.5 years ago. Let me even roll back the clock farther when Jonathan Dismang and John Burris went down there trying to promise everybody a great verification system. Where's the accountability to Jonathan Dismang, who always makes sure his friends are taken care of, and John Burris, who now receives checks off the same company he did the legislation. So I'm asking on Twitter, like I said, thank goodness for Twitter, you can use this stuff. You know, he's always on Roby Brock. I asked Roby Brock, why don't you ask John Burris, who's bragging about this on Twitter, how many millions of dollars, tax dollars, did Centene pocket off the people on ineligible enrollees for years?
Yeah, that's exactly
And that's
right.
why Centene won't pay the money back. But I doubt Roby Brock's going to do that.
Yeah, that's a big problem when you think about, and even Cindy Gillespie, I believe the head of DHS, she even mentions that, well, we've got to get this right because this is what's so maddening. We've got to get this right because whether or not these people go to the doctor, we're paying their premium anyway. And it's like, are we just now realizing that that's a problem? I mean, are we just now realizing that that's a big, problem?
If she was working for a real-world company and had that kind of attitude over this looting, literally, folks, let me tell you something. They have been backing, you want to look at an analogy, they have been backing Brinks trucks up down there at DHS, and millions, hundreds of millions have been looted out of Medicaid.
Yeah.
You know what? And then now she's just getting it. I mean, and we're paying her thousands of dollars more. But Asa Hutchinson knew about this. He knew about it.
Yeah, well, so the question is, like you were saying, how much did taxpayers pay for the $73,000 that were on there that weren't supposed to be, and how long?
Guess what?
Yeah.
We're going to have something come out on that. Now, I know Roby Brock and the mainstream, news down there is going to totally ignore it, like they've ignored everything else. Okay, and they don't write the right stories, and they don't really write what's going on. But I'm going to have something come out on that. And,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, so that's a great question. I mean, we got to know the answer to that because that's just complete waste. And like I said, those headlines should have been reversed. But they made
it as soft a story on the things down there as they possibly could.
Yeah, so more questions here. How much was the software to get us here? We know what a debacle that was. Why were they allowed on the program in the first place? Okay, how many more are ineligible that we don't know about yet? And the point is this: government always works this way. They grow government entitlements, they screw it up, then they make a tweak, and then they want to be worshipped like they're
breaking their arms. Yeah, they're breaking their arms trying to pat themselves on the back for a problem they ignored, lied and covered up about, and allowed to go happen way far too long, and can't tell you or don't want to tell you what they've been doing. I mean, it is just, and the news media down there lets them get away with it. And John Burris on Twitter,
saw that.
Just ask, hey, John, let us know. How many millions of dollars did Centene pocket off this? Because folks need to understand in our Medicaid expansion, we're doing this higher cost, higher price insurance scam Medicaid expansion. So somebody can still move here in Arkansas, live here for 2 weeks, turn around and leave, and Blue Cross Blue Shield and Centene still getting a check from you guys.
The last couple of news days, I was saying this yesterday especially, I think it might have been the busiest news day of the year, especially when we had news break of a Missouri I guess plea where a guy by the name of Don Jones from Philadelphia was pleading guilty to essentially using nonprofit money out of Missouri-based healthcare group. Alternative Opportunities, or now Preferred Family Healthcare is what they call themselves, to lobby government politicians for more grants and things like that. Did you follow that story at all, Brian? And I mean, it's ensnaring Arkansas politicians. And then I even covered the fact that we mentioned Jeremy Hutchinson. It's interesting that in 2013 he sponsored a bill to just commend, or a resolution to commend, Alternative Opportunities for what amazing work that they're doing. And yet that's the same company now that's under FBI investigation, for what I can tell. I mean, what are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying something for years. There's been something going on. Of course, you get ignored, ostracized. Oh, it's Brian King's angry again. Let me tell you something. There's a swamp down there. And now they're just now coming out, and they're forced. They didn't cover it. They're not doing anything about it. Legislators have been covering it up down there for years. I mean, just look at what's come out so far. Michael Lamoureux gets a $120,000 check out here from a consulting deal. You know, Jake Files, Gilbert Baker. I mean, and now, you have the actual thing happen with some of this, big Medicaid company, which maybe had more interesting stories.
Yeah, and they say it goes all the way to D.C. There's unnamed congressmen in the plea, and there's unnamed state representatives of Arkansas. And I just think to myself, your Medicaid disclosure bill would have busted all this wide open had it been a policy or a law that was in place. Had it been a part of the code, this would have been, or even a rule in the House or the Senate or the Assembly, this would have taken care of it. They would have had to have disclosed this stuff.
Yeah, 4 times, folks, this failed. 4 times this has failed down there in one way or another. But yet, all of a sudden, when all this starts going, and they can't keep it contained like they want to and everything, then the Senate caucus puts out a thing. They're committed to integrity. Once they can't keep it contained and they can't keep it down and they can't keep it under wraps, then now all of a sudden they're all ready.
Yeah.
And so anyway,
well,
I just am like, literally, this can't get any worse down there in Little Rock about the leadership down there and what's going on. And I'm going to tell you, there's more possible pay-to-play, and I say possible pay-to-play things, and I'm not so sure, that Asa Hutchinson doesn't need to answer some questions on some things. Jonathan Dismang needs to answer questions.
Well,
now, John Burris needs to answer questions, but he will not get them asked by Roby Brock.
Oh, yeah. No doubt about that. No doubt about that. All right. So shifting gears, Senator Brian King, real quick. We got a minute or 2 minutes left. So shifting gears, we've been having Arkansas politicos on and just asking them what Christmas means to them. So a lot of your colleagues have done it, and so just feel free, real quick, tell our audience what does Christmas mean to you, Senator Brian King?
That means celebration of a birth and Savior Jesus Christ. That's number one. I mean, the one that gave his life on the cross for us and died for our sins. And I'm certainly a very flawed person and need forgiveness and should be humbled and everything like that. And that's number one, what we should think about. And number two, it comes about in our family lives and personal lives and how we can use that celebration and recognition for him in our own lives.
Yeah. Well, I certainly appreciate that answer, Senator Brian King, and I just want to wish you a very Merry Christmas to you and your family, sir.
Okay, Merry Christmas to you, Paul.
All right. Thanks you so much. Senator Brian King, everybody. We got to go to break. Joe's been waving me on saying we got to go. Back in a minute.
Merry Christmas from the Paul Harrell Program and Conduit Media.
Do you need conservative legislation killed?
Or do you need policies enacted that ensure government growth?
Then you need to get
Nephewed. Hi, I'm nephew number 1 of uncle, nephew, and nephew, attorneys at law. I'm not a lawyer, but I am a senator.
And I'm nephew number 2, and I am a lawyer and also a senator.
Are you the victim of a recent accident in which the voters in your community mistakenly elected a limited government conservative who is now actually implementing the ideas he or she campaigned on?
That's right, nephew number 1. Don't be a victim of democratic elections any longer. At Uncle, Nephew, and Nephew, we are committed to killing limited government legislation and promoting bills that increase the size of government by using any tool at our disposal.
Because sometimes the truth of the matter is, principles get in the way of pragmatism.
Just listen to some of our great testimonials.
Ever since I've been using the nephews, all my special interests have been served. As long as you make sure your contract says lobbying services are prohibited, then the legal services of uncle, nephew, and nephew are legal. Trust me, put the nephews on them.
It came out of nowhere. I was blindsided last election cycle when my well-funded and paid-for politician lost to some grassroots limited government voters. But then I hired the nephews, and they killed all the conservative policies the voters wanted. I got nephewed.
I got nephewed too, and so can you. Uncle, nephew, and nephew will accept compensation via campaign contributions. Put the nephews on them.
PHP Parody.
Do you need to advertise your business product or service, but not sure what the best choice is? Folks, allow me to introduce you to Talk Radio. You're listening to it right now. Talk radio is one of the most unique mediums in all of advertising because it actually works. It gets the information you want to the people you want to get it to. And by the way, those people are educated, well-informed decision makers of their household, and most of them have disposable income. If this is a target audience for your business, then you have to consider advertising on my show, The Paul Harrell Program. We have options for most any budget and can provide you with exciting opportunities to grow your business. We can put your message across the state, or we can help you locally. Call 870-275-9755 if you have any questions. That's 870-275-9755, or visit my website, paulharrell.com, and click on Advertise.
All right, so we've had such a jam-packed news hour. We've got another hour coming your way next. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? I got big news. You ready for it? I got big news. I can't give you the news yet. I can give you a teaser that tomorrow I can give you some big news about the Paul Harrell Program and Conduit Media. How about that? Big news. Huge news. The establishment's going to melt down tomorrow. They may not melt down publicly, but internally, it's going to be like it's going to be an epic announcement. Let me say that. So I'm stoked about it. Joe's stoked about it, and and we will have a huge announcement tomorrow at the top of the show, okay? So definitely stay tuned. It's fun. It has to do, we teased it on Facebook already, okay? It has to do with something big. And it's going to start in January. Okay, so that's all I can say. Now, if you're his Patreon subscriber, shh, keep it secret. Keep it safe. If you're a Patreon subscriber, you already know the news. We put it out in our Wednesday weekly video today. We gave those who are, Liberty Machine engineers or Paul Harrell program producers or Conduit Media insiders, we gave you guys the scoop on what is coming down the pike. We'll announce it tomorrow. We've got one more hour coming your way next. I'm telling you, the establishment, the establishment is going to not be a happy camper. I can promise you that. 870-275-9799. We will be back for one more hour. Don't go anywhere. Joe takes a Conduit for Action quiz, and then we also are going to talk more about occupational licensing, and you don't want to miss that. I mean, it's really a shame, the massive amounts of opportunity that just being squandered. We're overregulated, and we're overtaxed, and we're over-licensed. More on that next hour as well. Don't go anywhere. Back in a minute, Arkansas.
Rush, Glenn, Sean, and Paul. This is Jonesboro's 1013. FM News Talk, KBTM.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Because it gives a university or a government official the right to say who can speak and who can't, and they can favor one viewpoint over another. And we don't want that type of, the First Amendment does not allow that type of power to be given to an official.
You know, Tyson, the Alliance Defending Freedom is a very prominent organization nationally, and you have not only yourself, but you have quite a few distinguished board members. Could you speak to that just a bit about, let people know how, you're not just a kind of a loose group that runs around the state, that this is a distinguished group of attorneys and business people who are defending our First Amendment.
Absolutely. We've been around for about 24 years, and in the last, we've won 6 Supreme Court arguments in the last 6 years. We just argued one last week. We've got another one scheduled in February. We're one of the most successful and respected, Supreme Court advocates on First Amendment issues. And we deal with, in my area, the Center for Academic Freedom University issues, but we also deal with pro-life issues. We also deal with protecting the churches and religious freedom areas, and then also rights of conscience. And, we were formed by some prominent ministries, James Dobson and a number of others that came together and said we need an organization that will fight for our freedom of religion and our First Amendment free speech rights.
We're talking with Tyson Langhofer from the Alliance Defending Freedom. He's senior counsel. He's involved in this representing Ashlyn Hoggard, an Arkansas State University student. I'm so glad that you guys exist. I want to echo what Dan was just saying, because honestly, when you go issue by issue with like an average Arkansan, we're very conservative. We believe in the Bill of Rights. We believe in the United States Constitution. We're not afraid of freedom. And so when you mentioned earlier, Tyson, that this is a public institution, they're getting our money, okay? They're getting taxpayer dollars, and then to have, a policy that just is not consistent with the opinions of a vast majority of Arkansans, and I can say that with a lot of confidence. I hope that this lawsuit, nudges them in the right direction to say, you know what, we don't need to institutionalize kids to, get used to the free speech zones that the government, has. We've had leftists talk about that, that needs to be a thing in just normal public life, not to mention universities. So I just, again, Tyson, want to thank you for what you guys are doing, and hopefully Arkansas State will make the right move here.
Absolutely, and that's our goal as well. We just want a constitutional policy, and frankly, this shouldn't be a controversial issue. This applies. The First Amendment applies to liberals, it applies to conservatives, libertarians, socialists. Everybody benefits from the right to freedom of speech, and this will open up the marketplace for all students of all voices at Arkansas State, and that's our goal.
All right, we appreciate it, Tyson Langhofer.
All right.
Be safe. Have a Merry Christmas to you, sir.
Thanks. Merry Christmas to you.
All righty, folks. We're going to go to break. We're going to be back with State Representative Dan Sullivan, talk a little bit more about this and this poster you got here that says, "In God We Trust." So don't go anywhere, folks. We're going to be back in just a moment.
Merry Christmas from the Paul Harrell Program and Conduit Media.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
This is Mothered Government. my people. The promised revenue gathering to fund my motherly goals, such as the Arkansas Works, Obamacare, private option has commenced. I have asked my representatives and senators to execute my will concerning new revenues from the tires you use to drive on my roads, the candy and soda.
From District 53. Wow, I'm just going to say this after listening to Tyson Langhofer. Pretty sure ASU is going to have to change that policy of theirs.
I think so too, and I think they're willing. I mean, I think sometimes these policies are written back before any of these board members were on. It hasn't been an issue. When I spoke with folks at ASU, they were very willing to sit down and meet with our local legislators and work through it. And I know they have told me they are consistently for free speech. So I anticipate working through this, but it'll be fun.
Well, and it might trickle down to, over to the U of A, too. If they have a similar policy.
Yeah, it might even trickle down to the Second Amendment.
Yeah, who knows? Okay, all right, so that's a great point.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks. It is, you have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Welcome. My name is Paul. Thanks so much for being with us. Just told you guys we got a huge announcement coming up tomorrow that has to do with this program in Conduit Media, and you definitely want to know about it. But you're going to have to wait until tomorrow. So, but it is terrific news, number one, and number two, it means that the establishment in Arkansas will be very fearful of what the announcement is. That's all I'm going to say. Telephone number 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. Joe, you know what this sound means? It's time for the Conduit for Action game show. It's actually a weekly quiz. You can find it over at conduitforaction.org, where our board operator Joe takes a quiz, and this one in particular has to do with an earlier Conduit for Action quiz, detailed the history of the Obamacare Medicaid expansion program, previously called the private option, now called Arkansas Works. As a reminder, this is primarily a welfare program providing health insurance paid for by the taxpayers to able-bodied working-age adults, many of whom do not or will not work. According to Governor Asa Hutchinson, this welfare program is a pillar of the Affordable Care Act, a.k.a. Obamacare. Hey, can we talk about the individual mandate being repealed, though, huh? We have tax reform being passed. Huge victory for Trump. Huge victory for people who pay taxes. We're going to have more money in our pockets. We're going to have more money in our pockets. And in that same bill, I got you unplugged. In that same bill, guess what? They repealed the individual mandate, which was tyranny. That thing was tyranny. And if they can make you buy health insurance, they can make you eat broccoli instead of bacon, like that creepy Ewan McGregor movie. What was that called? The Island or something?
That's a good movie. I like that movie.
I know, but it's creepy.
Yeah, it is kind of creepy.
I mean, it's totally, when they drag off Michael Clark Duncan.
Oh, yeah, that's,
because his clone needs the organs. It's very, very creepy. But anyway, finishing up with this.
So what I was going to ask
Okay.
before I
Okay.
figured out that my mic wasn't plugged in.
Sorry, I had to. It was part of our big announcement I was working on. I had to unplug your mic. Sorry, I forgot to plug it back
That's
in.
fine. That's fine.
Yep.
So did it pass the Senate today?
Yep, passed the Senate, and the House had to vote on it a second time because of a glitch. The Democrats were trying to be obstructionist. Imagine that. You know what's hilarious?
So
to
it's
me?
fully passed. We're getting
Yeah, he's going to sign
tax
it.
cuts.
Yeah,
Sweet.
Yeah. And I mean, I listening to the Democrats from the floor of whatever respective chamber they're in, just rail and get out on a soapbox and talk about how terrible this is going to be, and yet in the shadow of it, you know what happened, Joe? AT&T, after the tax cuts passed today,
Did they lose their mind?
No, they announced that they're giving 200,000 of their lower-level employees a $1,000 bonus before the end of the year.
Hey.
And
If this
people are like, well, that's just a publicity stunt. No, I mean, okay, so it makes them look good. So it makes the Republicans look good. But you think maybe it's more of an economic stunt because now you're going to have some more money, and not only they're giving 200,000 of their employees $1,000 extra, they're investing. They announced $1 billion into their business in America. That's huge.
If this isn't a kind of like a rub your nose in it moment for the Democrats, I don't know what will be, because they can't say this tax policy is bad anymore.
I know, and if people actually start to, when people actually get more money in their paychecks, and that's going to start in January.
Oh, did you hear about
because people who are employees, they're now going to all of a sudden have the estimates and the deductions out of their check are going to be less.
Did you know about the protesters outside of the cap or outside of the House and the Senate whenever these votes were going on? What they were saying?
No, I missed that.
It was something along the lines of, oh man, now I forget it. Now that I'm talking about it, I totally forgot it.
Okay.
But basically, it has to do with cutting taxes is killing us, essentially.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's killing us. Rosie O'Donnell tried to bribe, Susan Collins of Maine. She said she offered $2 million to vote no, and she was freaking out, saying this is going to be terrible. It's like, how is more money in the average American's pocket? Yeah, more money in corporations. Yeah, but how's more money in the average going to kill? That doesn't make any sense. And they're totally unhinged.
The only group of people this doesn't affect is those who don't already pay taxes.
Yeah,
that's the only people it doesn't affect.
Yeah, not just AT&T, Wells Fargo, Fifth Third Bancorp, they unveil a minimum wage hike.
Okay, so
after a tax package bill, so now they're going to pay people a higher starting wage because of the bill passing.
Funny story. Okay, so Fifth Third Bancorp, I've never heard of that. When I went to Chicago for the week of Thanksgiving this year. It's the first time I ever heard of that, and it's because we drove past this bank that's close to my aunt's house. It's the Fifth Third Bank, and I was like, why is it called the Fifth Third Bank? And no one could give me an answer.
Oh yeah,
I don't know why it's called that.
I don't know. Yeah, that's I have no idea. Maybe there's an answer to that though. Maybe that's a Google. Anyway, huge news, and the Obamacare individual mandate being repealed is maybe, that's results. And people say it's the death knell for Obamacare because now it's going to financially just collapse, and that's true. But I don't even care about that. I don't care about the program as much as I care about the principle of the government saying that unless you have health insurance, you are not in good standing. Unless you buy health insurance from a private company, you are not in good standing with said private company. Or I'm sorry, with the government. Unless you pay a tribute. I find that immoral. I do not believe that the government should be in the business of putting a price on what a life is worth in terms of an insurance policy just because you're alive in order to be in good standing. That is not freedom, folks. That's not freedom. So, very good news out of that. Now, back to the quiz, though. Arkansas still, Obamacare may be repealed in a sense with that individual mandate gone. Arkansas is still in a complete and total mess. All right? When Governor Hutchinson decided to keep this welfare program and change the name to Arkansas Works, he promoted the idea of requirements for work and for some to pay small portions of their premiums. These requirements have become a talking point for the governor and other legislators. However, actions speak louder than words, and reality is not always the perception cast by politicians. A recent waiver the Hutchinson administration submitted to Washington, D.C. was also billed as a work requirement, exposing the so-called work requirement from the previous year as being a sham. This quiz will cut through the rhetoric and focus on the reality and actual implementation of the so-called work requirement or requirement. What people will learn is that when a requirement is not enforced and filled with exemptions and loopholes, it completely undermines the so-called talking point requirement. So let's go to the quiz. Joe, just so you know, if you get a correct answer later when we go over the answers, okay, we're going with this noise. I'm sorry. Yeah, that noise right there. And this is what happens if you get a wrong answer. You will be booed and shamed and embarrassed. All right, so
I can just use the leftist taxonomy. Just say shame over and over again at me.
Yeah, that's right.
That was another thing they were saying at the Capitol. Where they were just yelling shame at people. Yes, because shame totally works on everybody.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Unless you have no shame, then it's okay.
Have you no shame?
Nope.
I've actually said that before. I've used that phrase before against Arkansas politicians.
I have no shame.
Like, the fact that they won't ask Jake Files to resign when he clearly needs to resign. It's like really, really ridiculous. Okay, question number 1. If a person is required to pay a portion, 2% of their health insurance premium under Arkansas Works, and they do not do so, what happens? Think it out. Is it that the person will be dropped from the health insurance plan? That the way they are treated the same, that way they're treated the same as taxpayers who are funding and subsidizing this Obamacare welfare program. If they don't pay their own health insurance plans, they lose their coverage. Or the health insurance premiums are still paid by the taxpayer, and there are generally no consequences for the person not adhering to this so-called requirement. Are their wages garnished for the amounts they owe the state? Think it out now. Think it out.
Went with the health insurance premiums are still paid by the taxpayer, and there are generally no consequences for the person not adhering to this so-called requirement.
Okay, so
that's what I'm going with.
No consequences.
There is not a single consequence.
Pay what they're required to pay. That's what you think the answer is. Okay.
Because I know for a fact there are people who don't pay this, and nothing's happened to them.
Okay. Question number 2: How much do Arkansas Works recipients currently owe in unpaid premiums? A, $2.5 million, B, $6 million, C, $8 million, or D, $12 million?
This is one of those things where I'm just going to go with the highest one, $12 million.
All right, $12 million. He thinks they owe $12 million in unpaid premiums. All right. Question number 3. Question number 3. Will the state charge interest or penalties on these unpaid premiums?
Nope. Just nope.
No, they will not.
Nope.
Okay, no penalties. All right, that's your answer. Question number 4.
Why would they charge penalties to someone who's not already someone who refuses to pay it to begin with?
That is consistent logic. What percentage of people on Arkansas Works currently use the work referrals under the current program? Oh, this is a good one. All right, so is it A, 3%, B, 40%, C, 97%, or D, 100% because it is a, quote, requirement? Now, relax it out. Think about this really hard.
Even if it's a requirement,
but relax while
there's still people who don't do it. I do have to ask one question.
Yeah, go for it.
When it talks about work referrals, what does that exactly mean?
You were referred to a place where you can get a job.
Okay.
All right.
I'm going to say 3%.
Okay, good, because that sound means that you're out of time. So
because there's no way 100% of everyone. Because if they would actually do this, use the work referrals, then more than I would say 50% probably would have a job by now that's on Medicaid. More than 50%, and there's clearly a problem with that because there's.
Oh my gosh! I want the audience to know something. This is not a scripted segment.
No.
Okay, like this we cannot script this.
This is off.
Joe doesn't look at the questions most of the time unless I give him a heads. Sometimes I give you a heads up and I'm like, hey, you at least want to go read over these.
Even then, I still don't do it.
But like
the conclusions
that you're coming to are just priceless, and it's like.
I want this segment to be as genuine from me as
I
possible.
love it. I love it. Question number 5. Under a new work requirement waiver submitted to the federal government, what percentage of people in the Arkansas Works program would be totally exempt from this work requirement? A, 10%, B, 25%, C, at least 50%, or D, 70%? Think it out now. Under a new work requirement waiver submitted to the federal government, what percentage of people on the Arkansas Works program would be totally exempt from the requirement?
Something tells me that they would try to, they would use a specific standard that would try to exempt the most number of people possible. So I'm going to go 70%.
About out of time.
Going 70%.
All right. Wow, 70%.
They would try to find a way to go, here's the work requirement.
Gosh,
well, let's try to exempt all of these people under it.
Even if it's 50, even if it's 50,
that's still
it's
ridiculous.
Like
so dumb
to tout that as like you're making the program more conservative.
Oh, it's so much better now.
Question 6: how much will it cost the taxpayers to implement a computer system to track work requirement compliance? A, $500,000, B, $1.2 million, C, $2.5 million, or D, $4 million?
I think it's 500,000. So I think we talked about this once or twice.
We did talk about it once, for sure. All right, gonna need an answer.
I'm gonna go with 500,000, mostly because it's so cheap to do so, but they still refuse to do it.
All right,
it's not in the budget. $500,000 in the budget. Come on.
That's your answer. That's okay. Well,
it's probably wrong.
Question number 7. How many hours must a 19 to 49-year-old able to work person actually work under the proposed work requirement to the Obamacare Arkansas Works program to keep their health insurance? How many hours?
It's okay.
19 to 49. Do you actually have to work to keep your free health insurance? Is it A, 0, B, 1, C, 20, or D, 30? This is this is difficult.
I think for this one, it's not 0 or 1. I think there's actually a supposed amount of hours you're supposed to work. Oh, wait.
I'm not giving any help, just so people
know.
The
work requirement, the hour thing is to get people off of it. How many hours they have to work to get off of it.
Well, you would think so. That sound means you're out of time. I need to answer 0, 1, 20, or 30.
Because so I remember us talking something about this, and I think it was 30 hours because I remember it was like an hour a day. All you had to do was work an hour a day. That
sound means we're out of time, Joe. You
gotta go with 30.
You gotta obey the rules.
Go with 30. Yeah, the rules schmools.
Got it. All right, your answer was 30 there. We'll see if that's right here in just a
moment.
It's
probably wrong.
Question number 8. What are the options a person has to fulfill the work requirement proposed under the Obamacare Arkansas Works program? At least 80 hours of the following is supposed to be completed each month.
That's what it is. There's 80 hours a month. That's what it was. Okay.
All right. Well, I'm
not going to go back and change my answer.
All right. Okay. Well, I mean, if it was a test, you would. Okay. So, what are the options? Volunteer. You can pick multiple ones, I guess. Look for a job up to 40 hours per month. Participate in a job search training up to 40 hours per month. Participate in activities and programs through the Arkansas Department of Workforce Services. Take a class on health insurance using the health system or healthy living up to 20 hours a year. Participate in the on-the-job training. Participate in vocational training. Enrollment in an educational program. Actual employment or self-employment. Or D, all of the above. What are the options for a person?
That's J, all of the above.
Is it J?
I'm going with all of the above.
Okay, all of the above. Question 9. If a person does not meet their work requirement for 2 straight months, for those not falling under an exemption, will they lose their health insurance? A, yes. this is a monthly requirement. They will be dropped from their coverage unless they fit into one of the exemptions, or B, no, as long as they meet the requirement for the third month and all other months of the year.
Yeah, it's no, because I remember us talking about this, and I'm pretty sure that if they meet the requirement on the third month, then they're fine.
All right.
And all the rest of the months. I'm pretty sure that's it. Kept going with that one.
Question 10, have you subscribed to Conduit for Action's email list? The answer is yes. And you live in the town of Jonesboro, city of Jonesboro. So let's see what we got here. What'd you score? Let's hit the submit button.
Oh, I got a 55%.
Wow.
Jeez, that's awful.
Gosh.
That's awful.
You made a D. No, that's an F.
That's an F.
You made an F,
Well,
Joe.
actually, if we're using the British,
the
British grading scale, then I got a C.
Well, this is
probably a C plus, I think.
This is not Britain.
Can we
Britain.
use the British scale?
No, we can't.
Because the British scale, I think a 10 is an F.
Okay, we got to go to break. Actually, let's go to break. We'll go back over these answers when we come back because we have to go to break right now. Back in a minute.
Merry Christmas from the Paul Harrell Program and Conduit Media.
This is State Representative Dan Sullivan with a Liberty Moment. Governments do not make ideals, but ideals make governments. This is both historically and logically true. Of course, the government can help to sustain ideals and create institutions through which they can better be observed, but the source of their very nature is in the people. The people have to bear their own responsibilities. There's no method by which that burden can be shifted to the government. It's not the enactment, but the observance of laws that created the character of a nation. President Calvin Coolidge.
Paid for by Sullivan for Arkansas. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
If you would like information about advertising or supporting the Paul Harrell Program and Conduit Media Group, call 870-275-9755. Join the fight against big government and advance the preservation of liberty by calling 870-275-9755. The Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group. It's a PHP parody.
Hey, man, you got any of that marble rock?
Yeah, I've got the hookup.
Thanks. I need a fix real bad. I'm itching to grow some government.
How much you need?
I'm gonna need a taxpayer's dime bag.
No problem, sir. 1 taxpayer dime of marble rock. Enjoy.
Thanks, man. They don't call it...
All right, folks, welcome back. All right, so we went so far over in our discussion of the tax reform that we're getting, the tax cut that we're getting, that we kind of slacked on the quiz. So when we come back, we're gonna go over Joe's answers. My apologies on us taking too long and we have to go right back to break. But we'll go over Joe's answers. We're also going to go over occupational licensing in a fantastic article by Mr. David Ferguson. Don't go anywhere. Back in just a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
When you had the concept, I mean, the left said guns on college campuses, but I mean, originally that bill that that turned into what I consider pretty much of a mess, but it was just pretty simple. Professors, if you had a concealed carry, could carry, and the universities were totally against it, and so it is interesting. I mean, if we don't like the Second Amendment, okay, and we don't like the First Amendment, so I mean, what kind of values and policies do they really have?
Well, hopefully this will continue to spur that conversation. If we
Yeah.
have free speech zones, where is going to be our Second Amendment zone, or
Right.
where isn't our Second Amendment zone?
Yeah.
And of course, I'm
The whole campus.
The whole
It's
campus.
a gun-free zone.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll see, but it's a great opportunity for us to start to have that conversation in a new context where we're looking at our First Amendment, our Second Amendment, and our other rights that are given by God, that we are having restrictions placed on them that other men place on me, whether it's First or Second Amendment or others.
So we're hopeful that Arkansas State changes this policy, and I think you are, I think you're doing a great job being a mediator. It sounds like they're calling you and everything else.
Sure, and I really hope that we have some board members. I know most of the board members fairly well. I've known them for a number of years, and I know my competitor, or my opponent, I guess, has one of the board members is one of his primary sponsors. So I hope they will reach out and take the lead on this. And I know there are other people that support my opponent that should be taking the lead on this too.
Yeah, well, if you look at your opponent, he's entirely funded by healthcare interests. So the new medical school, for example, at Arkansas State, you've got, I'm sure, a lot of, it just seems very strange.
And he's entirely silent.
Yeah, exactly. I can't get a hold of him.
And what a great opportunity for all of us to enter in that discussion with ASU, board members, legislators, administration, and the public, to let our university know how you feel about our First and Second Amendment rights.
Yeah, I think it's certainly something we've got to have this discussion.
Absolutely.
So I'm really glad that the Alliance Defending Freedom is involved, and it sounds like they're going to have to change their policy for sure.
I've met with them several times. I'm really proud of our college Republicans. You talk about some young people stepping up to the plate. Folks, again, if you get a chance to support them and let them know how much you appreciate them, these are the kinds of young people that we need to be supporting. They're passionate, they're knowledgeable, and they're engaged.
Tell me about this. This is, show this to the camera. Folks, I'll describe it to you. I'll listen on radio. It just says, "In God We Trust," with the American flag right next to the Arkansas flag. So what is this, Dan?
Yeah, the legislature in this past session passed legislation to put our national motto, "In God We Trust," in all the classrooms in the state of Arkansas. We're working with a group, Heritage Foundation, and I've got 500 of these that I've purchased. Of course, they're only 75 cents, so it's not a big deal. But I'm ready to put these in every classroom in District 53, which is Jonesboro, Brookland, Bay, Riverside, Buffalo Island, Brooklyn, those school districts. I've met with most of their school boards, and they're excited about it. And I'm going to be meeting with parent groups and church groups. I've already had a couple of churches call, and they want to get some signs and go to their kids' and grandkids' rooms and place them in those classrooms. So it's just a great opportunity, and anyone that would like to help get these signs in District 53, if they'll just give me a call or shoot me a text at 870-275-2929, or go on my Facebook page. They can get that information, text me, Facebook me, and after the first of the year, we'll help them organize and get those in their classrooms.
Wow.
If they want to, if they're not in those districts.
870. Hey, Merry Christmas to everybody out there. I want to remind you that our whiteboard this week, it just says King Jesus, because that's what Christmas is about. And a lot, I thought about a lot of things, had a lot of suggestions. For unto us a child is born, and and I'm still, tomorrow I'm going to go over what Christmas means to me. But I would just say that if you haven't thought, and sometimes we don't, but if you haven't thought of Jesus as a king, I would just encourage you to pray and meditate on that concept. Not just a king, but the king. And why in the world would he lower himself to be born in the circumstances he was born in? And then you go to the Bible and you find out that the ways of the world that we consider wise, he can make the wise fools, and he can actually make fools wise, because our ways are not his ways. So, Joe, we've got to go over your wrong answers. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. But seriously, let's go over this. What did you miss? Throw this back up there. What did you miss on the Conduit for Action quiz? You got this one right. Question 1, if a person is required to pay a portion, 2% of their health insurance premiums under Arkansas Works, and they don't, what happens? Well, this is what happens.
There are no repercussions.
Yeah, there are no repercussions. Nothing happens. All right, go down. Question 2, you missed this one, right?
Yeah.
How much do Arkansas Works recipients currently owe in unpaid premiums? You said $12 million. The actual answer is $8 million. And so, for the first time in a few weeks, your strategy of just going with the worst-case scenario
didn't pay off.
Didn't pay off. I think we may have some people listening who are making these quizzes, and they're like, we're tired of being mocked and made a fool of.
The powers that be are mad at me for some reason.
Yeah, well, no, they just wanted to trick you.
The tricker. I've been double-crossed.
Question 3. Will the state charge interest or penalties for unpaid premiums? No. What percentage of people on Arkansas Works currently use the work referrals under the current work program?
3%.
3%. What a joke. Going back and listening to Asa and listening to these Republican establishment people talk about, well, we're putting in work requirements, and they weren't work requirements, they were work referral requirements, and only 3% even use that program. That is a joke.
They're mixing it up for me.
That's right. Okay, question number 5. Under a new work requirement waiver, you got this one wrong. Under new work requirement waiver submitted to the federal government, what percentage of people on the Arkansas Works program would be totally exempt from the work requirement? You said 70%. And you were wrong. The answer is actually at least 50, which I said was egregious.
Yeah. I
mean, even that's egregious. So even if they get it approved, which it's not on schedule, the Trump administration has not approved it yet. It's
and I hope they don't.
It's at least 50%. What's not even going to affect them. Okay. Next. Question 6.
I would rather them just get rid of Obamacare entirely. No work requirements or anything. Just get rid of it.
Yeah, I know.
Just be
That's
done
what
with
you
it.
would do with a house fire. You just want to get rid of it. Question 6. How much will it cost the taxpayers to implement a computer system to track work requirement compliance? You chose $500,000. The correct answer is actually $2.5 million.
This one I went counterintuitive to the strategy because instead of going, oh, man, this is like saying $4 million, which is normally I pick the highest one. I picked the lowest in this case because it's so cheap to implement it. It's not even like it's like a drop in the bucket compared to the budget, and they still won't do it.
Oh yeah, well well they're going to do it. Yeah.
Are they really going to do it?
Well, it's not going to work.
I would say yeah.
I mean, but they're going to spend the $2.5 million on some contractor to not deliver. So I mean, they're going to do it, and then it's not going to work because it never works. Question 7. Did you get that one wrong? You got that one wrong.
Because I remember something about 30 hours for some reason.
Yeah,
that was in my head.
How many hours must a 19 to 49-year-old able to work person actually work under the proposed work requirement to Arkansas Obamacare to keep their health insurance? 30.
I was really considering going with 0 at one point. I was like, is it 0?
Yeah. How many hours must a 19 to keep? Okay.
Maybe I overthought this question.
So 30 hours of work. Now, this is designed to bring out a point that's not talked about among the Republican apologists in the media. What that's saying is you've only got to work 30 hours a week. Now, all of us out there are people who, are not on welfare, are you working 30 hours a week? Maybe some people who are independently wealthy and just are kind of doing a hobby or something, maybe, or somebody retired. But for those of us in the real world who are not on public assistance, we're not really able to get by working 30 hours a week, are we? We've got to work more. You have to work more during the week. You have to work 40 hours a week is what is considered a full-time work week. So what is this work requirement really showing us? If they have to, as long, the ones that are not, if you want to keep your insurance and you don't get to fall into one of those loopholes, you're going to have to work 30 hours a week. If you work 40 hours a week, you make too much money on minimum wage to qualify for the free health insurance.
And they
this is
quote-unquote kick you off.
Yeah, and it's setting up a cliff. Let's say you're working 20, 25, 30 hours a week, right? You get up to that 30. And let's say you want to start working more. Let's say you're good at it. Okay, well, there's a welfare cliff now because you're getting more money, but at some point you're going to make too much money and actually lose money because now you have to pay for insurance. I mean, now you don't because there's no individual mandate, but you get the point. It's called a welfare cliff, and they can never – it's always going to be somewhere. On a welfare program for able-to-work adults who are not truly needy, there's going to be a welfare cliff that disincentivizes them to continue moving forward. All right, question number 7.
Got this one right.
What are the options a person has to fulfill the work requirement proposed?
All of these things.
The options are ludicrous. These are all loopholes, okay? If you want to, you can just volunteer somewhere.
Yeah, you won't have to get paid or
anything. Now that
just
means that
volunteer.
you could just not to discourage this, but I'm just saying you could just go volunteer at a church
or a soup kitchen,
and that's considered fulfilling your work requirements. Okay,
and you don't get paid.
But you're good. You're good on that. And so my point is how many? I mean, is there anybody out there running organizations that would say that you're a volunteer that you volunteered X amount of hours when you really haven't? Look for a job up to 40 hours per month. So you could just say you're looking for a job and keep your health insurance. Participate in a job search training up to 40 hours a month. Participate in activities and programs through the Arkansas Department of Workforce Services. You could take a class on health insurance using the health system or healthy living up to 20 hours per year. You could participate in on-the-job training, participate in vocational training, enrollment in an educational program. What is that? That's just all college students right there. Actual employment or self-employment. So that's one of the options is actual employment, but you have all these others. So it's not a work requirement when you have all of these loopholes.
Okay, so the look for a job up to 40 hours per month, I just imagine it's like, how like you get talk to someone or someone talks to you about like if you've met any of these requirements or whatever, it goes, oh yeah, I've been looking for a job. So what did you do for 40 hours this week or this month? Oh, I just open up the newspaper and look at the classifieds.
40 hours a week, yeah.
Up to 40 hours, so it could be 1 hour.
Yeah.
Up to.
Yeah.
So, oh yeah, just like last Tuesday, I just looked at the classifieds for an hour, and there was nothing there that I wanted to do.
Yeah, all right. Question number 9. Did you get that one right? Yes,
yeah,
you did.
Right.
If a person does not meet their work requirement for 2 straight months, do they lose it? No, as long as they meet the requirement for the 3rd month.
And all other months.
And that's a new thing. I didn't know that. In all other months of the year. Okay, so. Anything else? Are there more? Was there 10?
No, that's it.
All right.
Well, there was
right, so
there was 11 technically, and the last 2 are always the same.
Okay. All right. Cool. Well, Joe, that's good. I mean, I'm glad we
boo
learned
me.
something here today.
Just boo me.
Oh yeah, you need
my
the boo.
F.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was trying to be nice to you.
No, I'll take my booze.
Okay.
I gotta take my licks.
You got an F today. Very disappointed in you.
Sorry,
all right.
I'm sorry I disappointed all my fans out there once again.
So,
hang my head in shame.
This is probably one of the best articles out there right now. It's doing very well on Facebook. It's over at conduitforaction.org. And it's by David Ferguson, and he writes that Arkansas's obsession with licensing occupations, that's what this is on. He writes, would you want someone to do surgery on you who hadn't completed medical education and training? How about having someone do a root canal on your tooth after merely watching a YouTube video? Ugh, that's too painful to think about, he writes. There are occupations where you want to be assured the person is highly trained and subject to rigorous standards. But the questions are, how many occupations actually need to be licensed? And what does over-licensure do to our economic freedom, a.k.a. the right to earn a living? A 2007 report by the Reason Foundation examined how many occupations each state licensed. California was found to require a license for the highest number of occupations, 177. California, being the most regulated state, probably doesn't surprise you because of Californians' reputation as being a haven of wild-eyed liberals. But did you know the study showed Arkansas to have the 5th highest number of occupational licenses in the nation? 128. Compare Arkansas's 128 licenses to our neighbor, Missouri, which had the least at 41, or to Mississippi, which licenses only 68 occupations. Even the huge state of Texas only has 78. Even the large liberal state of New York only had 77 licensed occupations. The number of occupations listed in various reports may vary depending on how broad the study is and could be much higher. A recent press release posted by Representative Richard Womack and some other legislators says there are 300 occupational licenses in Arkansas. In addition, the burden Arkansas puts on these occupations is very high when compared to other states. A 2014 report by the Arkansas Center for Research and Economics said Arkansas has the second highest average burden in terms of time and money imposed on the licensed occupations, end quote. A study by the Institute for Justice published in November 2017 looked at 102 lower-income occupations licensed and found Arkansas has the 3rd highest burden on these occupations in the country. What does Arkansas license, or why does Arkansas license so many occupations? Why do they do this? All states regulate some occupations, and Missouri has 41 occupational licenses. But do we need to license every occupation? No. Now, think about that. I think the left operates in a world where they want, yes, the answer is yes, they want everything to be licensed. But the answer is no. Cars are repaired without mechanics having to create a mechanics board. The explosion of computer occupations does just fine without a state licensing board. Instead, jobs in the computer field rely on degrees, certifications, and the aptitude of the person. Why has Arkansas chosen to license so many occupations? Is it because Arkansas was a Democrat-controlled state for generations? David Ferguson writes, no. Some of the states with relatively few occupational licenses also had a history of being a Democrat-controlled state. We have so many licenses, he goes on, because special interests want to be licensed. 2007 study for Reason Foundation and a 2014 study by ACRE, Arkansas Center for Research and Economics, both raise the issue of occupational licenses being created because special interests want to protect their turf. This matches my experience, David Ferguson writes, during a nearly 32-year career working for the Arkansas legislature. He was the head of the Bureau of Arkansas, the Bureau of Legislative Research, rather. Members of an occupation may actually think their proposed licensure law is needed to better serve the public. But behind this idea is the idea of, I can do it better than my cheaper, less experienced competitor. But the flip side is, number one, a license will increase my status. We once were just unregulated workers, but now we are better. We are licensed. With a license, a person can insert that fact in his advertisements and make sure people see the word licensed on a work van or a business card. Number two, a license will keep out people who are not as good as me. In every licensing law, there is also a strong element of keeping down the amount of competition by constructing hurdles that must be overcome before working in the occupation. Is there a meaningful difference in the work when performed by a lesser educated or experienced person who charges less? Do the supposed benefits of the licensing law justify imposing fees and regulations on the worker and the potential increase in cost to the consumer from lower competition? When a new licensing law is proposed, the typical question asked by legislators are, do the people in the occupation want to be licensed? And will the new law cause a conflict with any other licensed occupation? What you don't hear asked is, will the new license make a significant difference in the quality of the work received by the public? And if so, does the difference justify the barriers being erected to entering the occupation? See, it's about a mindset of how you think of government. And that second portion is not the mentality down there of these people. David Ferguson writes, and he's got this highlighted in blue, and I think for good reason. During my career as an attorney for the legislature, I wrote several bills to create new occupational licenses. I don't recall a single instance in which consumers came to the legislature demanding to be protected through the creation of a new occupation license, nor do I recall there ever being a debate on whether the supposed benefits of the licensure law justified the new restrictions. Every bill I worked on, David Ferguson writes, had its beginning with members of an occupation wanting to be licensed. Often, the interest group would show a legislator similar legislation from a big regulation state such as California and say, we need this too. I have the impression that some of the legislators sponsoring such bills cared nothing about the subject but were just doing a favor for their constituent. Once a legislator agreed to have legislation prepared, I would get a call from the legislator who would tell me to work with his constituent and the group. I would work with them to fill in gaps in their legislation, but the one thing the interest group always had before coming to see me was what qualifications they wanted a person to have to be licensed. In preparing the legislation, I read many occupational licensing laws, so I would be aware of the elements that tended to go into such legislation. David Ferguson goes on, I noticed that if the qualifications for licensing included a test, the test would apply to future applicants and not to those initially licensed. Just another barrier to future competitors. I'm of the opinion Arkansas requires so many occupational licenses, not because we have greater need for licensure than states like Missouri, but because of the willingness of legislators to go along with new licensing laws without any scrutiny of the supposed benefits versus the existence of an actual need and whether there is harm to economic freedom and the economy. Just because licensees are happy doesn't mean it's a good thing. This is a recipe for continued growth in the number of occupations and less economic freedom. Occupational licenses. Don't expect to see a reduction. Don't expect to see a reduction in the number of occupations licensed in Arkansas. These special interests, like the laws and the number of occupational licenses required, it's not a big issue for many legislators since the licensees are generally happy to be regulated and to exclude others. Yet, it is still a concern for conservatives who value economic freedom and who are concerned by the continual growth of government. Just because licensees are happy doesn't mean it's a good thing. Whether or not to license more occupations is not just a matter of your philosophy of government, with Democrats and big government Republicans on one side and limited government on the other. The issue is also a matter of our economy and on-job opportunities for the next generation of Arkansans. The Arkansas Center for Research and Economics raised the alarm that Arkansas's extensive occupational licensure requirements hurt the state's economy, particularly harming the state's poor. According to Acre, quote, In the 1950s, only 5% of the U.S. workforce was employed in jobs that required licensure. But licensure requirements have grown so that 29% of the U.S. workforce was employed in jobs that required licensure by 2006. Acres analysts of how the occupational licensing affects the poor, both in lost opportunities and in cost of services, is well worth reading, and a link to the report is provided at the end of the article. Now, folks, we're out of time, but this article goes on for a little bit longer and gets specific, and we will cover it more tomorrow. We're going to take a break and be back in just a moment.
Merry Christmas from the Paul Harrell Program and Conduit Media.
Order. In the name of public safety, order. This meeting of the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards is called to order in the name of public safety. What's on the agenda for the day?
We have before us today, per our summons, a representative from the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing cosmetology, cosmetologist, and all things hair care and beauty.
Right. Of course, I remember this. In the name of public safety, ma'am, please state your name for the record, and thank you for appearing before us today.
Yes, my name is Cosmo Glamour Gazette, and I'm here in response to a letter our state board received claiming we're in violation of the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards. In the letter, you claim that our licensing board is in violation of your rules and regulations because we have failed to, quote, pay tribute, end quote, and therefore have not been granted a license by the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing licensing boards to, quote, shake down the Arkansans who have an interest in cosmetology, end quote.
In the name of public safety, order. Yes, Miss Gazette, we sent you that letter because you have not obtained our approval in the form of a license from our board to distribute licenses to the professional class your board strives to protect. In the name of public safety, of course.
Of course.
So, in the name of public safety, and just so we can get this for the record, you do admit and agree with our board, the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards, that you have not obtained a license, thereby revealing your board of cosmetology to be operating outside our rules, regulations, and authority?
Well, sir, I'm not sure our board agrees that we need a license from your board to continue to shake down, to look out for the public safety of Arkansans.
In the name of public safety.
In the name of public safety.
Well, it seems we are at a bit of an impasse if we are not...
All right, folks. That's all the time we have for today. We're going to be back here tomorrow with bells on, not just because it's Christmas, but because we've got stuff that we want to say, and it's the truth, and you're not going to hear it anywhere else. So thank you so much. We got a huge announcement tomorrow, and it's going to have a big impact on the mentality, the mental clarity of the establishment. So you don't want to miss that announcement at 4 o'clock, the start of the show tomorrow. Arkansas, thanks for listening. Be safe.